All right, get ready to dive into some seriously trippy stuff today.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about reality itself
A
and
big one.
whether it's all an illusion. I got these sources you sent over, a bit of philosophy and neuroscience and even some pop culture.
A good mix.
And it all kind of boils down to this question. What if everything we think we know is, well, not real?
Yeah, it's a question that's been around for a while.
Centuries at least, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, it's one that I still kind of get stuck on sometimes.
Me too. It's a big one. I guess to kick things off, we should talk about René Descartes.
Of course.
His Cartesian dream argument is like the ultimate reality check.
It really is. Basically, he's saying, how can we ever be totally sure that we're not dreaming right now?
Right, like you can pinch yourself all you want.
Exactly.
But is there really any way to know for sure?
Nope. And the crazy thing is...
Like how seriously he took it.
Yeah, he didn't just kind of throw this out there,
As a thought experiment.
Right. He even talked about this time where he thought he was dressed.
Sitting by the fire.
Yeah, completely normal. But actually, he was in bed naked.
So if we can't even trust our senses to tell us if we're clothed or not,
Right.
what can we trust?
Exactly. That's why that whole Cartesian dream idea is so powerful. It makes you question everything you think you know.
Even the basics.
And it's kind of freaky how it connects to those modern ideas, too.
Like the whole brain in a vat thing.
Exactly. Or even the Matrix. Like, what if our brains are just feeding us this totally made-up reality?
Okay, now that is seriously messing with my head.
Yeah.
So are you saying that our brains could be tricking us all the time?
Well, it's not necessarily about tricking us, I guess.
Yeah.
But one of the articles you sent over, the one from La Nacion, talks about how our brains are essentially factories of illusions.
Factories of illusions. That's a wild way to put it.
Yeah, well, they're saying that our brains create this inner model of the world,
Okay.
and that shapes everything we experience.
So it's called the neuromatrix, right?
Yeah, Dr. Miguel Angel Velasquez talks about it.
Okay, so this isn't just about dreaming, right?
No.
It's like our brains are always building this reality even when we're awake.
Exactly. It's taking in all that sensory information,
Yeah, sights and sounds and all that.
But then it has to filter it and make sense of it all.
So it's like creating this reality that we experience.
Exactly. The catch is that whole process isn't perfect. There's room for error,
Yeah, I guess there would have to be, right?
like biases and, well, illusions.
So even when we're wide awake, what we think is real could actually be totally distorted.
It's possible, and here's the really trippy part.
This is more.
Velasquez says that even if our brains are making these illusions,
Yeah.
they're basically tricking themselves.
Whoa, hold on, explain that one.
Well, because in a way, we are our brains, right?
I mean, I guess so.
We are the minds that they create, so who's really being fooled?
It's like a hall of mirrors
It really is.
inside our own heads.
Yeah.
But okay, if our brains are so good at making these illusions,
Yeah.
do you think there are limits to what we can even see?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Like, what if there's this whole other level of reality that we just can't even grasp?
That actually connects to some of the stuff in the GPT source you sent?
Oh, yeah.
It talks about how even though our brains are super powerful, they probably have limits.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
there might be parts of reality that are just too complex or too subtle for us to even understand.
Okay, now you're really blowing my mind. So what if we could, like, expand our consciousness somehow? Like, tap into those unused parts of our brains.
Interesting.
Would we see the universe in a totally different way then?
That's a really cool idea. Like, imagine you updated your computer's operating system.
Yeah.
Suddenly you can run all these new programs.
Access information you never could before.
What if expanding our consciousness is kind of like that?
Okay, wait. Before we go any further down this rabbit hole,
Yeah.
let's take a step back
Yeah.
and look at a real-life example of this whole brain as illusion maker thing.
Sounds good.
What about the Mandela Effect?
That's actually a perfect example.
It really makes you question how reliable our memories are.
Yeah, and the GPT source says that some people think the Mandela Effect is proof of alternate realities or shifting timelines.
It's like maybe those shared false memories
Right.
aren't glitches, but glimpses into different versions of reality.
Okay, but hold on. Before we get lost in alternate dimensions,
Right.
let's break down what the Mandela Effect actually is and how it relates to all of this. So the Mandela Effect is when, like, a whole bunch of people remember the same thing wrong.
Right. And those examples in the GPT source are crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Like Looney Tunes and Darth Vader never saying, "Luke, I am your father."
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if we're all just going crazy.
Well, it's not necessarily that we're going crazy. It's more like, remember, we're talking about the brain making illusions.
Right.
Our memories aren't perfect recordings. They're like reconstructions
Oh, okay.
that our brains have to put back together every time.
And that's where things can get messed up.
Exactly. And it can be affected by all sorts of things like emotions and what we expect to happen.
Even other people's memories.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Okay, so maybe those Mandela Effect glitches are just our brains filling in the blanks.
Right, making assumptions about what makes sense.
But what about those people who say the Mandela Effect proves alternate realities or timelines merging?
Yeah, that's where things get really out there.
That's where I start to lose it.
I get it, but let's stick with what we know about the brain.
Okay.
We've talked about how our brains build our view of reality, right?
Yeah.
Well, what if that process isn't limited to just right now?
What do you mean?
What if our brains are always weaving together the past, present, and future into one big story?
Wait, so you're saying our sense of time could be another one of those brain-made illusions?
It's a really interesting thought, and some serious thinkers have explored it.
Oh, wow.
There are even physics theories suggesting time might not be as simple as we think.
So maybe it's not a straight line.
Right. Maybe it's more fluid and subjective.
So time isn't this external force controlling everything.
It could be more like an internal thing shaped by our brains.
That is a wild thought, but how does that explain the Mandela effect?
Well, if time isn't as fixed as we think, maybe those false memories are glimpses into different timelines or parallel universes.
Where those events actually happened?
Exactly. Or maybe they're echoes of our own past from a slightly different version of reality.
Okay, now I'm down the rabbit hole.
Uh-huh.
Dreams, illusions, time being a construct.
Yeah.
Is anything real?
It's the big question, right? But remember what we said before?
Yeah.
Even if everything we experience is an illusion, it's still our reality.
I guess that's true.
It's what shapes our lives and connects us to each other.
So instead of worrying about what's real versus what's an illusion,
Yeah.
maybe we should focus on how our brains create these experiences.
Exactly, and what that tells us about ourselves and the universe.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit more grounded. But this whole conversation about time and alternate realities makes me think about something else.
Okay, what's that?
Those times when our consciousness just seems to disappear.
Like when?
Like when we're sleeping or maybe even under anesthesia.
Oh, interesting.
What happens to our sense of reality then?
That's a great point. And it brings us back to Descartes and his fascination with dreams.
Right.
You know how he was struck by how hard it is to tell dreams from waking life?
Yeah.
Well, what if sleep isn't just about resting, but about exploring different states of consciousness?
Like different ways of seeing reality.
Exactly. And, in one of those sources, Descartes even said something about how his own weird thoughts almost convinced him he was still dreaming.
He was struggling with it too.
Even he couldn't quite grasp the line between those states of consciousness.
And in dreams, time and space don't really matter.
Nope.
We can fly and teleport and talk to people who've passed away.
It's like our brains are free from the rules of waking reality.
So maybe when consciousness fades, it's not about disappearing, but shifting to a different level of awareness.
Interesting.
One where reality works differently.
That's a really cool concept, and it applies to more than just sleep.
No.
Think about meditation, hypnosis, even near-death experiences.
Okay. Yeah.
These altered states often involve big shifts in how we perceive time, space, and ourselves.
And you know what's wild is that in a lot of those altered states, people report feeling super aware.
Yeah.
Like they're connected to something bigger than themselves.
It's like by letting go of our usual grip on reality, we open ourselves up to a whole new level of understanding.
Exactly. And it reminds us that there's so much we don't know about consciousness, the limits of what we can perceive and the true nature of reality.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot, from the Cartesian dream to the Mandela effect, from time as a construct to exploring different states of consciousness.
Yeah, we have.
But I think the biggest takeaway for me is that our brains are constantly shaping our reality even when we don't realize it.
I agree, and that idea might be a bit unsettling.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's also really empowering because if our brains are creating our reality,
Yeah.
we have the power to choose how we see the world. Okay, so if we can shape our own reality, what does that mean for all those big existential questions? Like if there's no one right answer, how do we make sense of the universe and our place in it?
That's a really deep question and maybe a bit philosophical, but I think we have time for one last mind-bending thought, don't you?
All right, so we said that our brains are like these master illusionists always shaping our reality.
Yeah.
But then where does that leave us when it comes to finding truth or meaning?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It really is.
And philosophers have been trying to figure that out forever.
I bet.
But here's the thing, just because how we see reality is subjective,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it's meaningless.
Okay, I'm listening.
I think it actually makes meaning even more important.
How so?
Well, if there's no one objective truth out there just waiting to be discovered,
Yeah.
then the meaning we find in life is something we create ourselves.
So it's more about what we choose to see.
It's about realizing we have the power to shape our own experiences and to find value and purpose in those connections we make. You know, the stories we tell, the impact we have on the world around us.
So it's less about finding some universal truth and more about making our own meaning.
Exactly. It's about accepting that our experience is subjective and realizing that the meaning we find is just as real and valid because it's personal and unique to us.
Okay.
It's like instead of trying to follow some pre-written script, we're writing our own stories,
I like that.
creating our own narratives and finding meaning in the process of creation itself.
It kind of takes the pressure off. Like, we don't have to have all the answers.
Right.
We just have to be open to the experience and find meaning in the journey.
Exactly. And that journey, that exploration of our own consciousness and where we fit in the universe, that's where things get really exciting.
I could see that.
It's about pushing the boundaries of what we can perceive, questioning everything we think we know, and being open to the mystery of it all.
It's like maybe the whole point of this reality-bending experience isn't to get to some final answer, but to keep asking questions and exploring and expanding our understanding of what's possible.
Right. And who knows, maybe along the way we'll discover something truly amazing, something that changes our perspective and helps us understand this crazy, beautiful, confusing thing we call life.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
Dreams, illusions, the nature of time, alternate realities, even the meaning of existence itself.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It has, and I'll admit I'm still processing it all.
I think that's the beauty of it all.
It really is.
These aren't questions with simple answers. They're meant to be thought about and debated and explored.
So what about you listening right now? What really stood out to you during this deep dive?
What are you still thinking about?
What new insights do you have about your own view of reality?
We encourage you to keep exploring these ideas on your own.
Yeah, dive deeper into what sparked your curiosity.
Challenge what you think you know about the world and where you fit into it.
And remember, even if everything we see is an illusion,
those illusions are so powerful.
They shape our experiences, our relationships, and who we are.
So embrace the mystery.
Yeah.
Question everything.
And keep searching for the meaning that resonates with you.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
See you then.